Hello, luxury real estate agents. Today I want to talk about dealing with objections. Yeah, even in the high end, we get objections, which are basically questions that people raise before they make a final decision to list with us or to buy from us. And I want to discuss a 7-step process for dealing with objections. And they're quite simple, really. The first one is when you hear an objection, is to pause. And I think for many real estate people, this is the most difficult step of all. Pause, be quiet, wait, and listen. Now, I just paused for about 10 seconds, which on a video probably seems like 10 minutes, but the pause is a critical part because sometimes objections will answer themselves. You know, every year we go to the fair that we have here in Cape Cod, and they have the arcade with all the games and ways to win money, and not really money, but prizes for your kids. And one game that I really love is that one where the little gophers pop up, and you have this big hammer, and your job is to whack the gopher back down and whack as many gophers as you can in the amount of time that you have before your coins run out. And I get really excited about that because as I age, it's fun to see my reaction time is still good when it's time to whack gophers. Well, you know, I think a lot of people in sales, in particular in real estate and specifically, really think of objections as those little gophers who pop up at that game at the arcade, and you want to mash them down as fast as you can. So I've spent a lot of time talking about pausing, but that really is the critical aspect of dealing with objections. You will find that many of them will disappear if you just pause. The next step, though, after you pause, if it hasn't gone away, is to repeat the objection. In other words, if a seller says to you, I think that price you gave for my house is way too low. So you think my price is way too low. So you're going to repeat the objection. The important thing there is, one, to make sure you heard it correctly, and two, to make sure the client or prospect understands that you heard it carefully also. The step next is number 3, which is to acknowledge the objection. I understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that you want to get the highest price you can for your house. But let's talk about how I arrived at this price estimate for your property. In other words, I've just acknowledged their objection. I haven't confronted them. I haven't done this. As soon as you butt heads with somebody who gives you an objection, they're going to get their back up even more. The resistance is going to get only stronger. So, you know, pause, repeat, then acknowledge. And then number 4 is to isolate. I like the example here of when we get a home inspection back from a buyer agent on one of our listings, and you know, sometimes they'll call up and say, well, we have these several items that came up during the inspection, and I always ask them to put them in writing and let me know that this is the final list, because I found that when people call up on the phone, they say, well, you know, there's a leak by the dormer over here, and there's a loose brick in the fireplace. Then you go to the seller and you get those resolved, then you call back the other agent and say, these 2 things are resolved. And then they come back and say, well, they also found that there's a crack in the basement. And then they also found that there's something wrong with the heating system. So then you go back to the seller and you talk about the crack in the basement and the problem with the heating system. And then you go back to the buyer's agent, and what happens then? They bring up something else. So you want to isolate the issues at a home inspection. You also want to isolate the objection that comes up during a commitment time with the buyer or seller. So pause, repeat, acknowledge, and isolate. Number next is we want to actually deal with the objection. We want to offer an answer to that objection. And I'm not going to go into great detail on that now, because in my next blog, I'm going to break down this deal with it step, this answering step, into 5 components. But for the time being, just understand that step 5 is to deal with it. Next, number 6 is just to move on. Let's go on to the next thing and talk about the length of the contract, or our fee, or can I get a key to the property? Just move on. And then number 7, the final step, is to close for a signature on either the agreement to purchase the property or to list the property with you. So there's the 7 steps to handling objections. You know what would be really great is if you sent me via email some of the toughest objections you've had from a buyer or a seller. Because my theory is that when you go to a listing appointment, there's probably only 9 objections that you're ever going to hear from a seller. And yet a lot of times agents get all stressed out about the objections they're going to hear on a listing appointment, when in fact, I believe there's no more than 9. I haven't heard a new one in a long, long time. So if you've heard an objection that you think I haven't heard before, or that no one else has heard before, drop me a quick line or an email. I would love to hear that objection. Again, don't forget to pass this along to your friends in real estate. Hit the like button if you will, and we'll see you next time.